Back with us. Jeff, I'll start with you. Is there pressure on Bill Belichick this season?
Pressure meaning being fired? Absolutely not. I mean, listen, there's pressure every season. It doesn't matter how good you've been, but as far as being fired or let go from the New England Patriots, I think there's absolutely no chance of that.
Zero.
Listen, I understand the concern, and I have concern about who's going to call the offensive plays, what's this going to look like, the way the development of Mac Jones. There's been some other things that have gone probably not widely reported. They're changing the run game, which to me, they've been a power run game for 20 years or something to that effect, some kind of crazy number, moving more to zone, and I think that came from Matt Patricia. I'm a little concerned with that doesn't necessarily fit the personnel, in my opinion, what they have, so we'll see how that does. I don't know if they're doing that for play action or kind of what they're looking at. The receivers don't scare you, so there is definitely concerns. It's not just schematically, though. It's player personnel. It's what guys are looking like. We know they have always been a good defensive team. Can that and good special teams keep them winning games? And you think about Buffalo, the way Buffalo has really stretched out how good this team is, and even the Dolphins. Are they going to push? Can Tua take them? Would this be a third or fourth place team in the AFC East? And so there's definitely concern, Molly, in my opinion. But as far as like where Bill Belichick sits, if he were to be fired, there would be probably 30-ish teams interested in him right away. I mean, this guy understands football, and I'll say this about him. I've been around him some. This man, in my opinion, he's one of the few coaches. He could coach any position on the football field exceptionally well. So when I tell you about a guy who really understands the game, not just certain pieces and parts, but really, I would be completely comfortable. He would coach anything. And when you have a guy like that at the helm, whether it's Patricia calling the plays, hey, he'll sit down. This is what we're going to get. Here are the looks we're going to get. Let's use formations to get them in this defense so we can take advantage. So I don't think it's all, this is going to be all disaster. I do think it's going to be more difficult than when McDaniels has been there because he's one of the best play callers in the game, for many years. So as I look at this, there is concern, but I've made it clear where I think as far as job security.
Let me pause and put some parameters on this. This debate is not about Bill Belichick getting fired, just to be clear. He's the best coach in football. This is more about, when we're referring to pressure, I'm talking in terms of legacy and now with this play calling situation.
When you bring up legacy, it's dicey. I'm torn. I'm right in the middle. Yeah. On one hand, this is an 8-time champion. 6-time champion as a head coach. Yep. Arguably the greatest football mind we've ever seen. He's in that discussion. And clearly an elite overseer who delegates and allocates responsibilities to other people, oversees the whole process. He's one of the greatest, if not the greatest ever. Right. And we need to speak about him with that level of deference and respect. So when you've got a Matt Patricia or you got a Joe Judge, I don't want to hear about those names. We all know they're going to answer to Bill Belichick. And we know they ain't going to do anything that Bill Belichick doesn't co-sign them doing. And we also know that the latitude that Josh McDaniel had was something that was earned over the course of years. It wasn't given to him from day one. So it ain't going to be given to neither one of them from day one, at least on the offensive side of the ball. We understand that, okay? I will tell you this. Bill Belichick makes the final decisions on roster. And the roster ain't that damn impressive. Yeah. And at some point in time, we're going to have a discussion more about Bill Belichick. See, Bill Belichick, the coach, is so phenomenal that we ignore how subpar he is as an executive, as a GM. One of these days, we're going to get into that intensely. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.